Okay, that's what we can do. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I believe I'm coming out loud and clear because we want to. Okay, we want to talk about the ongoing debate, or should I say, ongoing struggle for what to represent the issue going on as regards to the Christian genocide, the genocide going on against the Christian communities, most especially in places like the Middle Belt. Middle Belt have been the hotbed of the ongoing genocide. Before I proceed, I would want to know how better we are coming out. Just endeavor to let us know how better we are coming out, then we can proceed. Let us know if we're coming out loud and clear. Let us know how clear in terms of visual and audio. If we are coming out loud and clear, use the comment section to let us know. Then we can proceed on the topic we have at hand. While I'm waiting for that very confirmation, let us know. Are we coming out loud and clear from your location? Let us know how clearer we are in terms of visual and audio. Let us know. Then we have to hit the ground. Okay, we have some couple of things we want to talk about this very moment. It strictly centers on the ongoing genocide, Christian genocide in Nigeria. It is important we build a foundation as regards to the history of genocide in Nigeria, because when people hear about genocide, when people get across that word genocide, people think it's a new crime that are being committed in Nigeria. Genocide, as far as Nigerian history, have been a recurring history. I stand to be corrected. Because Gen Z or children of this dispensation, when they hear the word genocide, especially as being said all over the world, Christian genocide in Nigeria, people tend to, see it as a new cement. People tend to see it as a new diction, a new word. It is never. It is unfortunate that Nigerian history is relegated to recycle bin for a purpose. And for a purpose is what we are seeing today, because some elements consciously decided to recycle history or the knowledge of history in Nigeria because they don't want people to know the past activities of the country called Nigeria. Ordinarily, you cannot talk about genocide as a modern crime of the Nigerian state. And those who took it as a responsibility to, get rid of history, you talk about Britain, because Britain also had a history of committing genocide in Nigeria as far back as during the colonial times. Most of you might not know. Because when we talk about Christian genocide, some people think is a new phrase. It's never a new phrase. As far as Nigeria dictionary is concerned, as far as Nigeria history is concerned, it's never a new phrase. It has been part of Nigerian history. If you look at the genocide that was committed, if you look at the genocide that was committed in 1949, we just want to build a historical background, or should I say chronological antecedent, so that people can understand the word genocide and Nigerian history. Nigerian history has been filled with incident of genocide, act of genocide. The only thing here is this: any part of the world where genocide was committed, people were held into accountability. In every part of the world where genocide were committed, the perpetrators of that heinous act or acts were held responsible for their crime against humanity. The difference between other places genocide had been committed and Nigeria is this: why other places, the actors, the perpetrators of genocide were held accountable. In the case of Nigeria, nobody have ever been held accountable. And that's why on that, on that ground, they also want to make sure that even the contemporary genocide that is going on, that nobody should be held accountable. Let me tell you, on 18th November 1949, Britain committed genocide in a place known as Enugu coal mine. Some persons, one funny thing about Nigerian history or Nigerian crime history or crime record is this: whenever a heinous crime is committed, the first thing the actors, in fact, the contemporary generation of Nigeria learned it from their colonial masters. Anytime crime against humanity was committed or is committed, the first thing the actors do is to import a word that will downplay the seriousness and gravity of the crime. On November 8, 1949, when Britain committed genocide in Enugu against coal miners who were asking for a fair labor condition, the British government, British colonial government, committed a genocide. The thing they did was to rush and say, no, let us move the narrative from genocide to massacre. They knew it was a genocide, but they spent their time arguing. The argument is, oh, don't call it genocide, call it massacre. But the truth remains, were there mass onslaught? Of course there was. Were there mass killing, annihilation? There was. But what the British colonial power or colonial government as at then was much interested was to downplay, through importation of war, to downplay the gravity of the crime, moving it from genocide to massacre. So when you hear massacre, when you hear genocide, you tend to be agitated. There is this inner, propensity to ask, why should such a thing be meted? And that is why Nigerian government has also learned that evil way of doing things. That anytime there is genocide, they don't spend time asking about how do we stop it? How do we make sure this thing is not repeating itself again? They spend time lobbying, investing on cement. They spend time on, oh, let us make sure that the world does not see it as a genocide, rather massacre. They have imported every languages. Remember, they imported farmers' herders' crisis or conflict. The same people imported bandits. These are advanced, in fact, obvious genocide. They say it's a bandit attack. In fact, they push it from terrorist attack to banditry. Move it from banditry to farmers' herders' clash. Where did they learn it? They learned it from British colonial power. And that's why anytime they are pushing that narrative, they run to BBC. They disgraced British Broadcasting Corporation. They quickly ran to them. They quickly run to BBC because they know that these are their masters who have an advanced craft in the management of crimes against humanity. British have an excellent record on that. They did it in India. They tried to downplay it. They have done it in many places. So what you see the Nigerian government trying, the craft that the Nigerian government is trying to present in the whole genocide story is exactly what they learned in 1949 from Britain. They learned it also in 1967 to 1970. There was also a genocide. There was also a genocide from 1967 to 1970 against the Biafran people. What did Britain also advise them to do? To downplay it and say, oh, it's just a police action. That was the language they thought to go on to use in describing the atrocity and the genocide that was committed against the Biafran population from 1967 to 1970. Gowon said it was a police action, not even a military action, police action. So Nigeria history is rich with efforts to downplay, not even mitigate, but downplaying crimes against humanity, not mitigating it. And today, we are also before our own very eyes, we are seeing a genocide carried out against the Christian population in North. It's happening. Instead of them to spend their time talking about how do we stop it, this is how responsible society acts. This is how responsible people are not reactive. They are proactive. You don't react, you mitigate. Instead of them to, this is, in fact, if Nigeria is a healthy society, would they wait until America's opinion comes in before they wake up to responsibility? If Nigeria is an ideal society, if Nigeria is a society that is ideally based, why will external voice propel them over securing of life and security? And the funniest thing is this, they are talking about sovereignty. And I ask a question, how do you even discuss sovereignty when Fulanis from Mali, from Niger, from Sahel invaded the Nigeria? What is an abuse? How do you define abuse to sovereignty? It's simple, in elementary definition. When there is external incursion, and that is not done with host country's permission. That is violation of sovereignty. And I'm asking a question. In a situation where a non-state actors, I just watched a video where Shetima, the vice president of Nigeria, was telling a Fulani man, telling him, you are a Fulani from Niger, from Mali. So you mean Fulanis outside Nigeria, invaded Nigeria, start killing your citizens? That is not a violation of sovereignty. How do you define a violation of sovereignty? It's only when it happens when that action is carried out by state actor. A non-state actor invaded, start massacring, start committing genocide against the indigenous people in Plateau, in Benue, in Kwara, in Zamfara, in Katsina, in Sokoto, in Enugu, and all the rest of them. In Oyo State, and in fact, nationwide, the Fulani terrorists are unleashing hell. And terribly, you are talking about the concept of sovereignty. So, you mean that the invading terrorists did not violate your sovereignty, but a state actor that is seeking for intervention, trying to do what you cannot do, what you have relegated yourself out of, and you're promoting the concept of sovereignty. I don't understand. When a non-state actor has already, done that with their full chest, they entered, started killing. Instead of you to even, where you think you are not having the capacity to curtail it, instead of you to seek a foreign attention, you are now even telling them, oh, you want to violate. That is to tell you the kind of mindset Nigerians have at leadership level. And let me tell you, no country is greater than the leadership composition. The mental quotient of your leadership is tantamount to your quality. You cannot be away from it. And today you see them, everybody is trying to talk, there is no genocide. You mean open graves where you're dumping 100, 250 Christian bodies? You mean it's not genocide? I tend to understand what genocide is all about. Perhaps I'm being wrongly informed by all available materials that define the concept of genocide. Now, US government made a position. And one thing people have not even understand these days, you see this attempt to, of course, sometimes I might not blame, some of the so-called men of God. I might not blame them because when you have not really gotten close to where or their level, you might not understand why some of them are spilling out trash. You will not understand why some of them are talking out of order. Sometimes you ask, are they senile? Are they suffering from the sickness that comes with old age? If you come close to them and see what some of them that have these private jets all over the nation, sometimes they have, a downward payment. Instead of paying what they're supposed to pay in the slot where they have their private jets parked, some of them have a kind of, should I say, subsidized. Some of them have waiver. They have waivers. Some of them enjoy waivers. Where their private jets are parking in Murtala Mohammed, in Nnamdi, in those hangars, or some of the parking spaces. They have the privilege of not paying certain taxes which they're supposed to pay. the government sometimes wave it off. So when you have a clergyman or clergywoman that is enjoying all those privileges, in fact, he will choose to speak by the directive of Asorok than the directive of the Holy Spirit. Yes, most of them are enjoying a whole lot of privileges that they will not. If you expect them to throw their voices to the ongoing genocide, you are kidding. You are delusional. Because they are down deep into their own banditry at the level of the pulpit. They are just pulpit bandits. While the politicians are looting the national treasury, these ones are making their victims. And of course, they will not want to speak because they know when you subject them into scrutiny, there are a lot of misappropriations, there are a lot of recklessness, corruption, and all the rest of them are around them. So they wouldn't want to poke the government to start looking into their fears. So that's why they cannot speak out against the ongoing genocide. Some of them have sloth. When government, brings pilgrim allocation for those traveling for pilgrim to, Israel. Some of these big generals, governors give them sloth and of course they dash this sloth to some of them. They sell it, some of them they give to their family and friends. So the political bandits are aware that these ones are not also clean. The pulpit bandits, some of these pulpit bandits, because not all of them. So the pulpit bandits understand that if they talk miscalculatively, because they want to defend the vulnerable in the society, that they might run into problems. So that's why you are also getting it wrong when you expect them to speak out. When you expect them to loan their voices. Commitment is much. They are deeply committed to stand against those who have subsidized their life. So many of them, when you are accusing your governors and your political leaders of misappropriation, some of the misappropriated funds find themselves in the pocket of these so-called big church generals. So they must be in tandem with the position of the government. They must work in synchronization with the position of the government, because the government is subsidizing their lives. It's not only fuel subsidy that drains the government purse. Some of these guys are already heavy draining subsidies to the public fund. So it's better you understand all these things, because if you don't understand that, you expect much to where you ought not to expect much from. You will start pushing much on areas you shouldn't push more. Just listen to some of them who are even trying because of pressures coming from their church member. Just listen to them, some of them who have spoken. They try to water down everything. Some of them say, oh, please, after 100 days, after 50 days, after 20 days, if it's not stopped, then we can let Americans do. They are trying to downplay, not being outrightly defining their positions. They don't want to be found to be cold or hot. Just trying to maintain that negative equilibrium position. That is how it is. So when you have such society where the government is, because of course the government is a government that has the president, a Muslim, vice president, a Muslim, minister for foreign affairs, a Muslim. So are you expecting in such composition that they should tell the world there is a Christian genocide? I mean, in such composition, where the president is a Muslim, the vice president, or that one is a conservative. The president might be a liberal Muslim, if there's anything like that. But permit me to use, kind of a broader perspective. The president might be a liberal Muslim because at least the president had both Christians and Muslim family. But he is being viced by a conservative Muslim. And you have a foreign minister, you have a foreign minister who's also a Muslim. So are you not expecting in such composition for them to push for Christian genocide narrative? If you're expecting the government to be in alignment with that narrative, that means something is wrong with you. Something is fundamentally wrong with you. And you must understand it. You must understand it. So that is why the government can never admit that. The clergy, men, the most, some of these highly placed and popular clergymen, Christian clergymen and women, are already, they are living a subsidized life, courtesy of public fund. You don't expect them to speak up. That is why IPOB and certain fellows within the Middle Belt took it as their responsibility to raise alarm of the existential issue. And I know federal government is not comfortable with that. And why should IPOB push that narrative? If you see them, they try to, go haywire. IPOB was able to push that narrative because IPOB has nothing. IPOB is not having a kind of incentives or subsidy from the federal government of Nigeria. So IPOB has nothing to lose. Any big pastor that says that has something big to lose. He might be asked to start paying what he ought to pay where his private jet is parked in Nigeria airports. So he has a lot to lose. But IPOB have nothing to lose. And she took it as a responsibility to push it. And people do not understand. Those of them, especially in Middle Belt and North, who are facing the genocide on the side of Fulanis, they do not have the media power to push. They don't have it. They are vulnerable people who are facing starvation, who are facing hunger, hostile environment. Is it not when somebody is gathered mentally that he will start talking about social media or pushing out a story? Those of them dying in Beirut, in Shendam, in Kanke, in Lantan, in Panshin, in Zakibiam, and all the rest of them. These are vulnerable people. Very vulnerable. They are struggling to feed. How much more to buy phone or buy data? So they don't have the synergy to push it out. And that's why the Fulanis were riding freely, because they understand that the conventional media cannot speak about it. Because the mainstream media in Nigerian space, the editors are also subsidized like the pulpit bandits. The editors are highly compromised, highly compromised. You can hear videos of how channels television downplays the number of victims. IPOB is the only one that has that media strength because of number of her followers on social media. And these guys are tagging the world leaders directly. They are not writing, say, oh, State Department of State Department, please help us and pass it to Donald Trump. They were tagging that is one thing that is getting the Nigerian government crazy. Because these guys have, mastered the art of drawing global attention in whatever they are doing. And they pushed it. Not just push for 1 year and slide back, or 2 years and slide back. They were pushing consistently. Consistent push. So why are we saying this? You see, every Christian that goes to church tomorrow, being Sunday, that doesn't pray for members of IPOB, you are really lying to yourself. You are deceiving yourself. Especially those of them in North. Those of them in Middle Belt. You own IPOB prayers and blessings. Because what your pastors could not do out of fear, what the mainstream media could not do, IPOB has done it. So for those of you who always compose song, God of this answers prayer, you should be changing your song to God of IPOB answers prayer, God of IPOB answer. You must compose a song. Because what those could not do, IPOB have put her resources on the front line to make sure that the genocide happening in North, most especially in North Central, that global attention is given to it. And of course, for your information, it will be difficult for the Nigerian state to win the war. I'm telling you, it will be difficult for the Nigerian state to defeat IPOB's position. As far as media, of course, what is it called? The Times, yes. Want to remember the particular media that made a very deep analysis, data breakdown on the number of, in fact, it was said that IPOB pushes over 200 million on one topic. That is how the cable, yes, I think the cable or Times made the analysis, the data breakdown. So it's a difficult thing for the Nigerian state to win. And I believe every single Christian should understand that you own IPOB prayers. Because your politicians do not care about your lives. That is how wicked they are. If you see videos and pictures of what Fulanis are doing in North, you understand that the Northerners are in a very big mess. The cables, yes. You understand how vulnerable these guys are. Nobody is caring about their life because an average Northern politician have shipped his family outside. Okay, look at what happened in Zamfara. An APC chieftain. We must understand this, that every life matters, and that is the pinnacle of IPOB's position. That's why IPOB has condemned severally, countlessly, any act that involves killing of innocent men and women. Forget the nonsense the Nigerian government is, the propaganda and the blackmail they push out there. Of course, they are expert on that. But IPOB position has been not destroying innocent lives. I repeat it, the Nigerian government have been an expert in blackmailing, sometimes false flag operations, just to make sure they blackmail IPO. Mazi Nnamdi, that has been his position. Every member of IPO that have been our position. So what am I trying to say? The Nigerian government is struggling today to convince America and the global community that there is no genocide against the Christians in Nigeria. But let me tell you one shocking thing. You see, each time Nigerian government is trying to fault the position of Donald Trump, his messages, each time Nigerian government is spending time to prove that Donald Trump was wrong, the more they are provoking American government. Because what that implies is that Nigerian government, is trying to tell the world that Trump is stupid. That US intelligence, because the president of US gathers information from US intelligence. What also Nigerian government is trying to tell the world, that US intelligence is so vulnerable and weak to be relied upon. And it's a very difficult situation here. Because if Nigeria admits, take note, if Nigeria admits that what Trump said is true, Americans domestically will push their government to protect the Christians. So, Nigerian government will not ever admit that. On the contrary, if Nigerian government keeps insisting that what Trump said is lie, in other way around, the American government itself will do everything possible to prove to the Americans and even the global community that their government, that Trump is right. You understand how difficult the situation is for the Nigerian ambulance. When the government of US was on 40 days or 41 days shutdown, most of you do not understand the impact of that to US, because the government was shut down. Federal workers' pay slip had to be on hold. Most of you think that the issue of genocide is sliding. Let me tell you, that would have been a period that the Nigerian state would have done everything possible to, if it takes entering the armory, to curtail the Fulanis. But they spent their time running to Russian platform, Chinese platform, the notorious BBC, the disgraced BBC, to prove that Trump was ignorant of what he was saying. Yes. Time they would have put to work, some of them were backing like mad dog on one plot of land in Abuja. They were doing all manners of funny things. What's it called? Daniel was busy shouting IPO on international media platform instead of proactively curtailing the Fulanis. And the carelessly that allowed Gumi to even escape, to helping him now to run international PR for the Fulanis terrorists. Because Gumi, I know, is a sound man, and of course he cannot be in Turkey without running PR. Don't be surprised, the whole story will be that Fulani needs their own country to establish Emirates. Gumi can change the narrative. I want you to understand that. Not changing the narrative towards US position. But Gumi can galvanize the Arab and the Islamic nations to support for Fulani establishment of Fulani Emirate in North. He can. He can. And they can also give them that support. Don't don't think everything can go the way you think it is. You don't know the PR Gumi does for these bodies. The whole story might change that they are freedom fighters who are seeking for their own emirate. And guess what? Certain Arab countries will come in and support. Is UAE, United Arab Emirates, not supporting the factional group in Sudan? In Yemen, are they also not supporting some groups? So you don't know what Gumi might be galvanizing within the Middle East right now, convincing key players that what is going on in Nigeria is not Fulani terrorism. Rather, Fulani is fighting for the establishment of their own emirate. And the story will change. You wake up one day for you to realize that they are having a global support, even though it's not coming from US. So, what am I trying to say? We must understand this. Now, US government have opened, the shutdown has ended, and of course, if you watch what is happening in US now, you see that US have now, US now want to teach Nigerian government what media war is all about. Yes, US want to teach Nigerian government what media war, because the whole position is very disturbing. And it's not going to be favorable to the Nigerian government. Because if the Nigerian government keeps insisting that Trump was wrong, US government would want to prove to them that you're a third world country. You don't have what it takes to disprove the position of US government. And if Nigerian government agrees, what it means is that the domestic opinion in US will be favorable to American deployment of our military. Now, let me tell you what US is doing now, because I do listen to what some of us write. Some of us will write, hey, US is delaying. What is US doing? US is not coming. Let me tell you, America has a very conscious considerations when it comes to foreign policy implementation, or when it comes to deployment of their soldier to foreign land. The American leadership consider what we call domestic opinion. Yes, domestic opinion. If domestic opinion is not favorable to that policy, no American president engages in external deployment of her soldiers. This is how America is structured. Because if you do that, definitely your party will lose the next election. And you cannot destroy your party's opportunity. That is how US work. That is how US works. That is the US system for you. Domestic opinion is a strong factor in American foreign policy. Go and study American foreign policy, whether in Middle East, whether in Southeast Asia, whether in even Caribbean, name it. American domestic opinion matters a lot. Now, the issue of Christian genocide is still happening within intergovernment. It is the American government telling Americans that there is a problem. Christians are killed in a place called Nigeria. And Nigeria is refuting that strongly, saying nothing like that. What American government is doing now is to gather enough domestic support. And how do they do that? American government can only do that by when making sure that anytime Americans open their televisions, anytime Americans, Google or make use of their handphones, they should be reading issues about Christian genocide in Nigeria. Already the project is ongoing. If you look at Fox News, they are doing it back to back. If you look at CBS, they are doing it back to back. If you look at major American media platforms, since the opening of American government, they are pushing it. Now, it is going to get to a point where American people, the Americans, will be questioning their government and say, why are you not moving in to help these people? Because American government is currently preparing the minds of Americans so that by the time Trump intervene, her rating will climb, because every American president considers what his or her rating status is all about. Unlike in Nigeria, nobody cares. After all, you have data boys, you have APC bandits and all the rest of them that will carry ballot box for you. So you don't care about what rating is all about. You don't care about what rating is all about. You have INEC to do it. You have the police to do it. You have, So, but in American society, you must consider rating. In fact, as a matter of fact, before election is conducted, the winner is already known based on public pool system, which is inherent in American system. Some of these things, when we say it, most of you look at it as something that happens in heaven. It doesn't happen in heaven, it happens here on earth. When a society is organized, it's organized. When a society is a damnable place, it's damnable. There's nothing you can do about it. In American society, based on public pool, you can make up to 90% accurate projection of whom the president is going to be. So what am I trying to say? The American government is preparing the minds of Americans currently because they want to intervene and they need a domestic support. Yes. And like I said in one of my videos, I did say, you see, when this issue of genocide came up, what every responsible government would have done, or country would have done, would have been to start, whenever they appear on international platform, they would have started telling the world, see what we have done to curtail the continuation of this heinous act. That is what the federal government would have spent her time doing in Aruti, in BBC, and all the rest of them. But you know what? Whenever they buy airtime to appear on these international platforms, what they spend time talking is how IPOB has been the one that pushed this story. Thereby telling the world that even United States government intelligence relies on IPOB information. That's an insult. It's a pure insult to an advanced country like US. Because at that time America made that statement, those in Asoro, what they would have done is to start saying, it's also time, look at the data, it's also we're able to reduce it to this level. Look at the policy at hand, look at what we did to mitigate. They didn't do that. Then, Bala was busy on international media platform, mocking America for relying on IPOB's record. Thereby, telling the world that, you see this America, you people respect a lot. You see America, CIA and FBI, they are weak. They are stupid. They don't even have a convincible information. They rely on non-state actor. It's an insult, which must come with consequences. Of course, Abuja knows that. they did not face the topic. That, the IPOB phobic tendency in them made them to switch from a constructive debate, constructive discussion, to feeble debates. That is what phobia does to people. Yes. So, that is what it is. Time they're supposed to engage on constructive debate, constructive argument, they IPOBized it. On international media, not on local level. They took the shenanigan status from local to international, and it was really, really painful to the American government. America felt insulted. America felt embarrassed. So it is lately when they have done a lot of damages that they don't even know what to do again. Currently, they don't know what to do again. They don't know what to do again. And of course, a country where everybody believes sorry. Where everybody believes sorry. Now, a country where everybody believes that everything is lobby. You can see how damaging it is. Because there is this mentality that, we can lobby ourselves in, we can, get people to talk. Guess what? ECOWAS made a statement, AU made a statement, China made a statement, UN made a statement. But has that changed the position of the United States? The answer is not. It hasn't. So, until the country keeps standing to her responsibilities, stop the idea of trying to water down or slide on, which of the description are we going to use? Are we going to say it's massacre, headers, farmers days and whatever? Or are we going to? All those things are semantic distractions. So, the truth remains that I believe this issue is coming on American Congress sooner than we expect, because those of them who are pushing this issue to the bill in US Congress are, of course, doing interestingly well. And we believe that any bill that comes as regards to stopping Christian genocide will have a bipartisan endorsement. We win the both sides high voting system. I'm talking about the Democrats and Republicans, because what we are seeing is really, really showing that the congressmen and women who are much interested on this are very key people in US Congress. If you look at the likes of Ted Cruz, if you look at Graham have also said that, has also opinionated on this in support of Donald Trump. So if you look at these guys, you will understand that, of course, they are not junior members of the Congress. These are key members of the Congress, senior members of the Congress. So I don't know how Asorok is going to get out of this. I don't know. Simply, I don't know. I don't know. But all I do know is this. The life of Christians matters. Not just only the Christians. The lives of every single person living in North matters a lot. Whether Christians or Muslims, their lives matters. Because what is going on in North could be better be described as worse scenario than whatever anyone can imagine. Northern Nigeria is not like Southern Nigeria, where you have high level of education, high level of curiosity. Before something happens, is already on the internet. That is the people of the South. Northern Nigeria does not have similar system. And most of the media personnel in Nigeria don't even travel to North. They are just stuck in Lagos and Abuja. Of course, you just see them in Lagos and Abuja. They don't even travel beyond Abuja. And they are there writing what is happening in Zamfara and Katsina. Fear cannot even allow them to travel to those places. Even nearby regions like Middlebelt, they even find it difficult. And the people of North do not have that high concentration on social media like the people of South, especially the members of IPO. And that's why the Nigerian government felt that IPOB is moving beyond her jurisdiction. But let me also say this. That narrative is also wrong, because I have also seen some, agents, state agents in North, who always say, oh, it is the IPOB people that are pushing the genocide. Let me tell you, IPOB believes in preservation of humanity. That is the epicenter of IPOB philosophy. IPOB started talking about Biafra agitation because the lives of Biafrans were threatened. If the lives of Biafrans are not facing threats in Nigeria, IPOB has no business talking about Biafra. IPOB would have been at the forefront talking about enhancement at most of our region. IPOB wouldn't have been talking about Biafra. But IPOB believes that if she does not work assiduously to get our people out of this life-threatening entity, that of course Biafrans might face annihilation. Now that IPOB have been able to, intelligently manage the insecurity in Biafra land, because the state actors did everything to destroy the land and pile everything on IPOB. And IPOB made a strategic withdrawal, especially places that needs to be withdrew. IPOB withdrew, came online and distanced herself over events happening in those places, thereby making the actors to be vulnerable. Now that IPOB has attained relatively peace in Biafra, IPOB believe that it beckons on her soul and consciousness to also advocate for the lives that are being wasted in North. Ordinarily, people will say, oh, if they want to finish themselves, let them finish themselves. But the truth is, you have a leader of IPOB, Mazi, Nnamdi, who is a pro-humanity. He's a pro-humanity. He's a pro-life, pro-humanity, pro-divinity. So when you have somebody whose personality revolves around this tripod consciousness, he does not leverage himself to his own constituency. When somebody is a pro-life, pro-humanity, pro-divinity, he wants human life to be preserved. He wants humanity to be preserved, and he believes in the position of divinity as regards to life and humanity. So IPOB's position as regards to what is happening in the North is anchored on her tripod philosophy in life, humanity, and divinity. And that's why IPOB is loaning out her voices, loaning out her resources to make sure that the lives that are being wasted in the North, that the government of Nigeria is held strongly accountable over that. Because the primary duty of a government is protection of life and property. Every other thing is secondary. This is the core objectives of the government, of setting up a government. Is a social contract where the government signed with the people to preserve their lives and property. Hence, the Nigerian government have mastered the art of Owambe, while the ordinary people are dying in the North. IPOB decided to call them out in order to stop them from dancing Owambe at the detriment of lives and property being wasted in North. And they are not comfortable with that. Did you see them talking about 2017 election again? They have gradually suspended everything because a superpower threatened to intervene. If not that IPOB did this job, believe you me, by now they would have been busy dancing 2017 Owambe. And the Fulanis will still continue wreaking havoc. They don't care. These guys don't care. Your leaders don't care. They don't have value to life. They don't care. They can't care today, they can't care tomorrow, they can't care forever. Because they don't even believe in that society. That's why they cannot expose any family member of theirs to be domiciled in Nigeria. Yes, it is only where one's family is, that is where the person does everything to preserve and protect. Nigerian politicians do not. In fact, the last day for them handing over, they have already booked flight to leave. These are people governing that part of the world. They don't believe in that country. They are not patriotic. They don't even know what patriotism is all about. They don't know what patriotism is. That's why somebody who have not even committed his life for anything will face a soldier who is risking his life every day and call him a fool. I tell you, these politicians, yes, 2027 rather, thank you. These politicians do not even they don't even know what patriotism is all about. For instance, in the Biafran struggle or self-determination struggle, one of the highest rated people are the officers of ESN. We hold them on a high esteem. In fact, they are the first citizens as far as the struggle is concerned. Do you know why? Because we see them putting their lives on the front line to defend the motherland. If not them, what is happening in Kwara, Plateau, and would have been a child's play in our land. Could have been a child's play. We do not joke with them, the members of the ESN. We respect them. They are greater than each and every one of us. That is how we see them in this role. Now, in the Nigerian angle, a soldier who is risking his life is being called fool by a politician who has not even done anything, who has never even sacrificed anything, who has never given the society anything. Rather, the society has been subsidizing his life. Yes, that is how terrible the system is. And this is a system somebody say, oh, don't mind, it will be better. Let's just keep on moving. No, you don't keep on moving. You don't move. When a car is faulty and obviously your destination is threatened, you alert. That's what a reasonable person, you on board. You onboard yourself, get another vehicle and continue. Just imagine if Nigeria had agreed as far back as 1970 to disintegrate. Do you think where Nigeria is today, that is where it would have been? The Oduduwas would have been competing with the Biafrans. The Ariwas would have been competing. Every region would have been competing to prove other region that you left does not mean we could not do it better. It happened. It happened in old Burma, the old India, the Burma. It happened. When the Hindus in India said they are going, the Muslims in Pakistan said they are going, Bangladesh, the same way. When they left, India and Pakistan started competing, even till tomorrow. They are competing amongst themselves. Oh, India is doing well in technology, in IT. Pakistan, ask anybody. The Pakistanis and Indians are the highest people when it comes to IT. They dominate. They are the ones dominating that sector of the economy or human life. IT. Why? The more India is climbing, the more Pakistan. It is called healthy competition. That would have been the case, but because Britain, in their racist nature, do not want any healthy competition. That's why they destroyed that opportunity. India and Pakistan, immediately they separated. Competition is there now. Pakistan will develop nuclear. India will develop nuclear tech. India will be growing in IT. Pakistan will also encourage her people to also grow. Because Pakistan wants to prove to India that we separated does not mean we cannot do it better. And if Nigeria had separated in 1970, maybe by now, Oduduwa people would have gone to space, or the Biafran people, or even the Ariwas. Maybe they would have developed so much in agriculture. Maybe you wouldn't have even have the nonsense that is going on. Perhaps they would have evolved to a point where they would have the highest number of cows to export to the Biafran and the Oduduwa people. Maybe they would have been controlling. Maybe these various people would have been running a very superb economic relationship. Why these people would go here, absorb their products, and it could have been an amazing thing. But because of parochialism, because of avoidable wickedness, shrewd interests of Britain, and few of their legacies within the Nigerian confines, they force people who can never be together to be together. Yes. They force people. You know what the funniest thing is that you can never run an equal society. You know that it's practically impossible. You always talk about equal society when you are not on the seat. But immediately you're there, you know that it's practically impossible. Did Buhari not kill federal character? He killed it. Is Tinubu doing federal character? You should know better. So when people talk about peaceful dissolution, it's not a threat. There's nothing bad about it. People can disintegrate peacefully, and Nigeria can do it. Let everyone works out, people do not understand that what you're seeing Fulani is doing. Fulanis are Sunni. Mainly, they are Sunni. Islam, you have the Shiite, you have the Sunni. Fulanis are mainly the Sunni Muslims. In fact, the entire north, majority of northern Muslims are Sunni. When you discuss it from sectarian point of view, just the way you have Catholicism and Pentecostalism in Christianity, you have Sunni, you have the Shiite. Now, anywhere you have Sunni domination, they always want to practice their Sharia. There's nothing bad about it. There is nothing fundamentally bad about people practicing their Sharia. It is their faith system. It is their way of life. And what are they arguing? They believe that as they are practicing that Sharia, and because they have access to the corporate governance, that the same Sharia they are practicing should be imported. That is that people do not understand the landscape of this conflict. Because if you understand it, you understand that nothing on earth will stop it. They are conservative Muslims. They want to practice Sharia. They want to live the life of Sharia. And they also believe that the national constitution should also be modeled to the direction of Sharia. So that even though when they are president, you don't tell them to say, God bless Nigeria. No. You tell them the constitution should start with Allah bless Nigeria, not God. The concept of God to a conservative Sunni Muslim is even an idolatry for them to use the word God. It is an idolatry for them to use the word God, because the word God is an English, is an Anglophonic. And being an Anglophonic is Christo-Judeo. You understand it? They want to practice their Sharia to the core. So when they now come close to seat of power, and you're telling them to talk about God, talk about secularism in constitution, it is really hurting and offensive. And when they want to react, you start asking, why should you react? Nigeria is a secular country. Nigeria is a secular country. Do you even understand the people you're telling about secularism? I will give instance. Let me give instance, because so many of you do not understand. In Syria is mainly dominated by Sunnis, but the government of Abeshir was a Shiite, or should I say Alawites. Alawites are, they have a close understanding with Shiite, which is a sect in Israel. Now, but the majority of Syrians are Sunnis. What then happened? They started desiring, while Abashir was running almost a secular system, the majority want Emirate system, they want Sharia system practiced to the fullness. And guess what? They started fighting under the umbrella of Al-Qaeda, succeeded in removing Abashir. When he was removed, they installed a leader of Al-Qaeda. You might not be wrong to say a former terrorist leader. They installed him as the president of Syria. You see, Syria is gradually stabilized. Why? Because you call them terrorists. They were fighting to have a society where they will practice what they want. Americans understood it from that perspective, that these guys in Syria are not going to give up because they want to remove a government that is talking about secularism and practice core Islamic government. The same way also has to do with Boko Haram. Boko Haram, ISWAP and all the rest of them are driving for an emirate. They are driving to have a country. The issue here is this. Their brothers who are in government would always tell them, oh, when a government is not favorable to those of them in government, they would encourage them to bomb more. But when they have access to the government, they use them as a bargaining chip. They start telling the government, oh, if you want us to talk to this boy, if you want us to interface, give us a position. When they get that position, instead of them interfacing between the government and the, should I call them terrorists or freedom fighters, instead of them to interface, they will forget these boys, and these boys will now do worse than what the government was told. So what am I trying to say? This is not a battle that if any sensitive person thinks is going to just recycle overnight, you're joking. Because it is a battle that is anchored on desire to practice in fullness their Islamic federation or Islamic life. So, what the world and every Nigerian should start considering, for those of you who do not understand it from this perspective, because you have a horrible media that ought to have educated you, that ought to have keep you informed, but because of brand envelope, which have forced a lot of them to be bereft with conscience, I mean to say, what every average Nigerian should be championing is for peaceful dissolution. Encourage peaceful dissolution so that to mitigate loss of life against violent dissolution. People can go their separate way and have their life, whatever they want to practice, done without prejudice. So from here, I want to say good evening. I want to say stay safe as we keep on moving. Thanks.